Welcome to Fear and Fiction, where the stories are strange and the fear is real. Okay, so I don't really know how to start this one without it sounding made up, and I promise I'm not the type. My roommate can back me up on this. I don't believe in any of the spooky stuff, don't watch scary movies before bed, none of it. Which is probably part of why this got to me the way it did, honestly, because there wasn't anything supernatural about it at all. That's the part I keep coming back to, actually. No ghost to blame it on, just a person. So I live in Overtown, and if you're not from Miami, you probably don't know it. It's this small neighborhood tucked up under the highway. Like actually under it, there's a massive elevated interstate running right over the top of half the block. Not some random accident either. Back in the 60s, they ran that thing straight through here on purpose, and it displaced something like 12,000 people, almost all black, out of a neighborhood that used to be called the Harlem of the South. Billie Holiday used to stay here after she performed on the beach, because the hotels over there wouldn't let her sleep there overnight. That's the kind of place we're talking about. My family's been in the same building since my grandmother rented here back in the 70s, so this isn't some new spot to me. I could walk that hallway in my sleep. Have more than once, honestly, coming home off a closing shift half dead on my feet. Anyway, here's the thing about me you should probably know going in. I trust my phone more than I trust my own eyes, basically. Doorbell camera goes off. I check the app before I even look up. Doesn't matter what's going on around me at the time. My roommates clowned me about it for years. Told me more than once it was going to get me eventually. Turns out he was right, just not in the way either of us thought at the time. Got one of those cheap video doorbells. My cousin put it in as a joke gift when I moved in, because the building's had a couple package thefts over the years. Nothing crazy, just enough that he thought it'd be funny to act like I needed real home security. For like 2 months, that thing caught nothing but delivery guys and my neighbor's cat, who for whatever reason loves hanging out right in front of my door around dinner time. I get the ping, glance at it, keep moving. Background noise, basically, same as anybody's notifications get after a while. Then one random Tuesday, I'm at work, on my lunch, and I get a motion alert, which normally I'd swipe away without even opening, except this one's from the camera inside. The little one my cousin also stuck up on the bookshelf across from the kitchen. That one basically never goes off unless I'm actually home moving around in there. Open it standing in the break room, half paying attention, honestly more annoyed than curious at that point, figuring it glitched or something. And there's somebody walking through my kitchen, not my roommate. Knew that immediately, because I'd literally just texted him 20 minutes before, and he sent back a picture of him sitting on his girlfriend's couch with her cat. Wasn't him. Couldn't have been him. Sat there staring at my own phone in that break room for probably a full minute before I did anything at all. Just watching some stranger go through my cabinets. Slow, like he had all the time in the world and no reason to hurry. Called the building's front desk first, which in hindsight wasn't the smartest first move. No answer. They only really staffed that during the day, and even then it's spotty at best. Called my roommate next, straight to voicemail. Called 911 after that finally, which honestly should have been my very first call and wasn't. And that delay's on me, I'll own that part of it. Dispatcher told me not to go home. Stay wherever I was, let them handle it, don't try to be a hero about it. Which, looking back, is about the one thing I actually did right in this whole story. And even that's mostly because somebody on the phone told me to, not because I worked it out myself in the moment. Took the cops maybe 20 minutes to actually get out there, which felt like an hour, sitting in that break room with my manager asking if everything was okay, and me just kind of staring at the wall. By the time they arrived, whoever it was had already left, out the back, through a window that didn't lock right, which I'd genuinely been meaning to fix for actual months at that point and just kept putting off. Nothing huge got taken, weirdly enough. Some cash I'd left sitting out on the counter, an old tablet I barely even used anymore. Felt almost anticlimactic once I actually got home and saw the place for myself, compared to how it felt watching that footage an hour earlier not knowing what I'd find. What got to me more, after the fact, was going back through my camera history from the week before, just out of some morbid curiosity, because there it was. Same guy, or at least somebody built the same, knocking on my actual door twice that week, both times during the day when nobody was supposed to be home. Never answered either time. Figured it was a delivery or somebody at the wrong unit entirely. Didn't think twice about it in the moment. Didn't even mention it to my roommate. Officer who came out explained that's actually a documented pattern, not just bad luck. Knock, see if anybody answers. And if nobody does after a couple tries, you've basically confirmed the place sits empty during certain hours. Called it a knock-knock burglary, which, I don't know, almost sounds like a joke until it's happening to your own front door specifically, on your own street, to your own stuff. Anyway, fixed the window. Finally, no more excuses on that front. I actually answer my door now too, or at least look through the peephole instead of letting a knock go completely unanswered like it means nothing. And if that notification ever shows me something inside my place again, I already know exactly what I'm doing. Not going in, not trying to see for myself, no matter how curious I am. Straight to the number you're actually supposed to call first, before anything else, before I even think about it twice. Wish I'd figured all that out before it cost me a window and a tablet I actually liked using. I'll be honest, I almost didn't post this one at all, because I feel a little stupid for how long I let it go on before I said anything to anybody. My sister's actually the one who talked me into finally writing the whole thing out, mostly because she said if I told it to her one more time over the phone, she was going to write it herself and probably get details wrong. I live in Lafayette Park, over on Detroit's east side, and most people don't realize this whole area sits right on top of what used to be Black Bottom and Paradise Valley. Real thriving neighborhood back in the day, jazz clubs up and down the street, Black-owned businesses everywhere you look, that kind of energy. Duke Ellington and Ella Fitzgerald both played clubs right around where my building stands now, which I think about sometimes walking to the mailboxes, honestly. All of it got torn down for urban renewal starting in the 50s. And what went up instead is where I actually live now, these mid-century towers everybody around here just calls Lafayette Park. So there's a lot of history sitting under my floor, basically, even if none of it has anything directly to do with what happened to me personally. Telling you all that, mostly because I think about it a lot. Living somewhere that used to be something else completely before I ever showed up. Feels worth mentioning, even if it's not really part of the actual story. Something you should probably know about me going in, since it matters for what happens next. I hate making a scene, hate bothering people, hate seeming paranoid, hate being the person who calls the front desk over what could turn out to be nothing at all. My sister says I'd apologize to a chair if I walked into it in the dark. She's not wrong about that, unfortunately, and I've made my peace with it mostly. So when I started noticing stuff that felt a little off over the course of maybe 3 weeks, I sat on every single bit of it way longer than I probably should have. First thing was a car, same car, parked in the same spot across from my building, 3 separate evenings over maybe 2 weeks. Somebody sitting in the driver's seat each time, not doing anything in particular, just sitting there with the engine off. Noticed it because I'm the type who notices things and then immediately talks herself right out of noticing them, if that makes any sense to anybody else. Told myself it was somebody waiting on a rideshare pickup or waiting on a friend upstairs who was running late. Totally normal city stuff. The kind of thing that happens on every block in Detroit on any given night. Didn't mention it to a single soul. Then, about a week after that, I got home from work and and there was a fresh little scratch mark right by my window latch. Small, easy to miss unless you're really looking closely, which I only happened to be doing because I was cleaning that exact window that same afternoon. Otherwise, I never would have noticed it at all. Told myself it was from moving furniture at some point. I genuinely don't know how I talked myself into that explanation, looking back on it now, since I hadn't moved a single piece of furniture anywhere near that particular window in months, maybe longer. Then came the knock. Middle of a Tuesday afternoon, a guy in an actual building maintenance polo, clipboard tucked under his arm, said he was there for a scheduled inspection on my unit's windows specifically, mentioned something about a building-wide safety check. I almost let him in. Want to be honest about that part, because it's the piece of this whole thing that scares me most in hindsight. Had my actual hand resting on the deadbolt, already halfway through unlocking it, something made me pause though and ask which company he was with, more just to make conversation at that point than out of any real suspicion. He gave me a name I didn't recognize offhand, which normally wouldn't mean much since I don't track every single vendor the building uses on a regular basis. But my neighbor happened to be walking down the hall at that exact moment, and she sits on the tenant board, so she actually knows this stuff. And she said flat out, there was no inspection scheduled for our floor that entire week. Nothing at all on the calendar. Guy didn't argue with either one of us about it. Just said must be the wrong building, apologized real quick, and left without much fuss. Didn't even seem particularly rattled about getting caught out like that, which somehow bothered me more afterward than if he actually had seemed nervous. That's when I finally said something out loud to somebody. Told my neighbor first, right there in the hallway, the whole thing, and then went down and told building security. And then, once I actually laid it all out together in my own head, the car, the scratch mark, the knock, all three. I called the police too, because put together like that, it stopped feeling like a handful of unrelated little nothing moments and started feeling exactly like what it probably actually was the whole time. Nothing huge ever came of the official police report, if I'm being honest with you. No arrest, no big dramatic resolution, nothing neatly tied off at the end. But building security started keeping a noticeably closer log after that whole incident. And I know for a fact my neighbors since warned at least 2 other people on our floor to actually verify anybody who shows up claiming to be maintenance, because none of us had ever really thought to double check any of that before this happened to me. I still hate making a scene, if I'm being completely honest with you. Working on that part, slowly, one day at a time really, but I check now. Every single time, no exceptions anymore. Doesn't matter how official somebody looks standing right there in my doorway, with a clipboard tucked under their arm and a badge clipped to their shirt. I've lived in Eatonville my whole life, same as my father did before me, same as his mother did before him. If you don't know the town, it's worth knowing something about. Founded back in 1887, first black community in the entire country to incorporate itself and govern its own affairs. Zora Neale Hurston grew up right here, wrote about this town more than once over the course of her life, and you can feel that history just walking down the main road most mornings. It's a small place, always has been. Everybody's known everybody for generations at this point, and that matters quite a bit for what I'm about to tell you, because in the end, that's the actual reason things turned out the way they did for me. I'm a man who's never loved asking for help, plain and simple. Never have, not once in my life that I can remember. My wife will tell you that's probably my worst quality by a wide margin, and she's not wrong about much when it comes to me. So I generally take her word on that one too, whether I like hearing it or not. I'd rather handle a problem quietly on my own every time than go knocking on some neighbor's door over something that might well amount to nothing at all. That particular habit nearly cost me. That's the short version of this whole story, if you want it in one sentence. Started with a car I didn't recognize at all, driving past my house slower than anybody reasonably needs to drive down a quiet residential street. And it did that more than once over the same week. Didn't think much of it at the time, if I'm honest. People get lost out here plenty, take a wrong turn off the main road. That sort of thing happens regularly enough that you learn not to read into it. Then I noticed my own habits were working against me a little, if I'm honest about the whole situation. I'd taken to leaving most of the house dark most evenings, purely out of habit, trying to keep the electric bill reasonable. And I'll admit now, looking back, that a house sitting dark like that every single night probably reads to the wrong kind of person. As an empty house nobody's actually occupying. Didn't occur to me even slightly at the time. Has occurred to me plenty since all this happened. Same week, I noticed the morning paper sitting out at the end of my drive a good bit longer than usual one particular day. Like somebody had walked right up near it and then thought better of whatever they'd actually been about to do next. Small thing on its own. Almost didn't register it at all in the moment, honestly. Filed it away without much thought. Didn't tell my wife any of this, for what it's worth to you. Told myself the whole time it was nothing worth worrying her over unnecessarily, which again, that's just how I tend to operate, for better or for worse, and mostly worse if you ask her directly about it. What actually ended up breaking the pattern wasn't anything I did myself. It was my neighbor, Mrs. Odom, 3 houses down from mine, who called me up one evening out of the blue and said she'd seen that exact same car twice herself that same week, and asked me straight out, no beating around it, if everything was all right over at my place. Told her yes, probably nothing at all, and I nearly left the whole conversation right there out of pure stubbornness on my part. She didn't leave it there though, thankfully for me. Called 2 more houses on the block that same evening, just to ask around and see if anybody else had noticed anything similar going on. That's simply how this particular town operates, and always has, going back generations at this point. Everybody looking out for one another because everybody's known. Everybody's people for longer than most folks can properly remember anymore. Turned out, 3 separate households along our stretch had all noticed that same car circling around over that same handful of days. Once we actually put all of that together in one conversation, one of the men down the street who keeps odd hours anyway on account of his work offered to sit out on his own porch a couple of those evenings just to see. And sure enough, the car came through again, slowed way down, passing my place same as before, and then kept right on moving once it became plain that somebody was sitting there in plain view watching the whole thing happen. Never came back after that. Far as any of us around here ever saw again, not once. I think about how long I sat on all of it, out of nothing more than pure pride, really, and how it wasn't anything I actually did myself that turned things around in the end. It was Mrs. Odom picking up her phone that one evening and refusing to just let it go quietly, and a whole street's worth of people who've been looking out for each other's houses since long before I was ever even born into this town myself. I leave the porch light burning every single night now, without fail. Small thing in the end, but it matters more than you think. And I don't sit on things quietly anymore either, not the way I used to for years. If something feels off to me now, I say something the very same evening it happens, not 3 weeks later, after I've already talked myself clean out of it a dozen separate times in my own head. That's the whole town really, if you want the honest truth of the matter. Nobody's ever truly been alone here, not really, whether they remember to act like it in the moment or not. All right, Fear and Fiction family, made it to the end. I want to thank you very much for taking the time to watch the video. If you enjoyed the video, like, share, subscribe, all those cool things. Also, get in those comments and tell me which story was your favorite. Until the next time.